Hello there everyone, it's Edward from Property Champ Singapore and welcome to the first episode of the Wealth Multiplier Secret Series, where I will share with you some of the property wisdoms and secrets that my smart rich clients use to grow their wealth. So if you like to see more of this type of content, do drop a like down below and hit the subscribe button to get notified for our new videos. And I'm sure everyone wants to know and wants to model after what the rich people do. So for today's secret, I want to share with everybody how the rich quietly make use of inflation to grow their wealth through properties. And this is something that they don't want the masses to know. And if you are familiar with inflation, you can skip to the next part. But if you need a quick refresher, continue watching. So inflation is caused mainly by three factors. And the first is cost push, where it is now more expensive to do the same business. And these costs are then pushed onto the consumers. And one example of this is the increase in construction worker salaries due to tighter border rules over the past 2 years. So the increase in salaries is now passed on onto these new home buyers, and that's one of the reasons why new launch prices shot up in that period. And in today's context, another factor that can contribute to higher home prices is the increase in GST. Needing to pay high GST at every stage of the construction to the sales process, home buyers will eventually bear these costs. And the next factor, demand inflation, where more people want something that has the same supply or decreasing supply. And you can see this happening in all the recent new launch sales, where the interest is oversubscribed with almost 2 to 3 times of checks put in versus the number of available units. Lastly, the classic cause of inflation is governments printing money. And when more notes are printed, the value of that note is worth less because there are now more notes chasing after the same things to buy. And the reason why we are experiencing a super high inflation rate this period is because the US printed 80% of all the US dollars in the past 2 years so that they can give stimulus checks to their citizens. But since we are not US citizens, the only stimulus we get is inflation from the overprinting.
Oh, it's not fair.
And as a popular financial hub, some of this extra money will naturally flow into Singapore, and that's why things become more and more expensive. So now, after knowing how inflation works, here's how the smart rich make use of it to grow their wealth. Whenever they buy property, they will take a mortgage loan, and it doesn't matter if it's as low as 40% or if it's the max loan at 75%, and they usually won't pay it off in full. Now the first reason is, of course, they want to stay liquid so they can grab other opportunities that may appear. And the other reason is because they know that over time, the real value of money will be eroded by inflation. $1,000 from 10 years ago isn't worth $1,000 today. In fact, the real value of that $1,000 from 10 years ago is worth roughly around $750 today. Let's say if their loan interest rate stays the same throughout their entire loan period of 20 to 30 years, their monthly mortgage stays the same, but they know that in 10 to 20 years, they are actually paying less because the real value of their monthly loan gets less and less due to inflation. Now here's a very basic example of how this works. And let's say that back in 2010, you had $1 million of cash sitting in your bank account, and with that amount, you can easily afford a 3-bedroom unit in this condo called Double Bay Residences in Simei. And this is not for investment, mind you, but this is a home that you can stay in with your family. And if you were to take a loan back then, you can actually borrow up to 80%, which is about $800,000. And to keep things simple, let's keep the interest rate fixed at 2% for the entire period. So over a 30-year period, the monthly repayment stays around 3K per month. And fast forward to today, even though you may still be paying 3K a month, based on the inflation, the real value of this amount is now $2,248. And over a period of 12 years, the real value of your loan dropped by $800. So what about the value of your property? Today, this 3-bedroom unit can be sold for around 1.6 mil, and this translates to about 600K in profits before deducting all the other taxes and fees. On the other hand, if you have kept this 1 million in your bank account during the same period, the real value today is close to 750K. And in 2010, you can fully pay off the 3-bedroom condo with this $1 million. And in 2023, with this amount, you can probably only get a 1-bedroom condo unit. And getting outpriced is a very real situation that can happen to you. Just like this buyer that was referred to us by one of our property champs. And let's call him Mr. A. So back in 2016, Mr. A had $1 million sitting in his bank account, while our property champ had only half of this amount. So Mr. A was in a very good position to fully pay off a high growth condo and was absolutely spoiled for choices. But he didn't take action and always had some reason not to buy each high growth property we shared about and kept sitting on the fence. Well, he's still sitting on the fence today with his $1 million in his bank account, and you all know that the real value of this amount is only worth about 820k. But our property champ had a different story. He followed our advice to buy a 7R property and is currently renting it out. And just from the rental, he has already taken 120k in profit, and his unrealized capital gain is about 150k. And if he were to realize all of his profits, his entire profit amount would amount to be 270,000. And the best part is he only came up with 400k initially. So imagine how much profit Mr. A could have earned if he went for a bigger unit in the same development like our property champs. What a waste of opportunity, right?
That's a damn shame.
So now you know how the rich use inflation and time to reduce their debt while growing their wealth through property. Of course, the scenario I shared in the example earlier was very simple and didn't factor in the fluctuation of interest rates too. And this is one of the things that many property buyers are concerned about too. Which is why in the next video, I will share with you how the rich are not worried about interest rates rising and how they outsource their entire debt to someone else. And after watching this video, if you feel like making use of inflation to your advantage but just don't know how, click on the link in the description for a free consultation with us. But because one-to-one consultations are time intensive, it is by approval basis only. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Like always, I'm Edward, empowering you to be property champs.